Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video, and in this video we're going to be checking out a budget SLA resin printer called the SparkMaker. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Alright, so let's get started. Alright guys, so the SparkMaker comes in this box here. It's not very large, but I wouldn't say it's tiny either. So let's go ahead and open it up. Let's see if we can just flip it around and pull this up. Alright, and it's encased in styrofoam. So it does seem well protected. Let's go ahead and pull the top cover off. Alright, so it looks like we do have some resin here. So here we have a pretty nice looking operating guide, and this thing is quite jam-packed with information and everything about the printer, and it is all in English, and it really goes in detail of how to use this printer. Very interesting. Look how thick this guide is. They really took the time to introduce you to resin printing and all that's involved. Very cool. So here it looks like we have a mask with some gloves that you will need because you're working with resin, and then for our last part we have the printer itself. That's everything for the packaging. All right, well, check this guy out. It's pretty nice. It's definitely small, but it definitely feels serious. It's quite heavy. You can go ahead and wrap it. Wow, it actually looks quite attractive being round. So it looks like we have some stuff inside, and there is a tape that's taping the base to this lid that we need to pull off. Alright, so the lid is a dark colored, like an orangey red, and that is to block UV rays not to get inside so the resin doesn't cure while it's printing. Very nice. So as we can see, we have a few more things here taped. And the attention to packing this stuff is really good. Alright, so we got a few boxes. Let's see what's in this first one. So we have a US power cable, also some accessories, a 4 gig full-size SD card, a little spatula, and a couple Allen wrenches. All right, let's see what's in this other one. Feels quite heavy. So this is the power adapter. So this side will plug into the printer, and then our cord will plug in here. And the cool part is they actually have a little on and off switch between the brick and the plug to the printer. So that makes it really nice. All right, so we're getting somewhere here. We do have a little SparkMaker sticker. That's really cool. And here's what the printer looks like. So this is our printing bed here. And so our Z-axis travels on a linear rail, and this is our Z-rod here. All these parts here, though, are plastic. So for something this small, I don't think that really matters too much. And it looks like it says wow on here with the exclamation mark. So this is the back, the sticker with some more information. This is where our power cord will plug in. There's a fan behind these little holes for ventilation, and there's another one on the other side. Here we have the knob that does all the functions, and then we have the full-size SD card slot underneath that. And this is what the bottom looks like. All right, so the interesting part about this printer is that it does not have an LCD screen, so there's no way to, see or navigate any kind of menus. It does have this knob here that pushes, and also rotates, so maybe that has some kind of functions. So we're definitely going to want to go over the manual and yeah, at least figure out how to get this thing set up. But I'm wondering if I unscrew this part, I should be able to slide out the printing platform, and there it goes. And this is a solid aluminum piece here, and we did have a little foam here that was protecting the bottom here, which is the tub that holds the resin in. And all this is metal, by the way, guys. And it looks like you can unscrew the tub and remove it and clean it and whatever else you got to do. And I don't know if you guys can see, but it does say 3M right there. All right, so now we just got to figure out how to get this thing started. And yeah, looking at this resin, it looks like it's a different kind of formula because it is water washable. So this resin is actually water soluble maybe, and you don't have to use alcohol at all, which eliminates, you know, a lot of the smells and stuff. So that's quite interesting. Definitely excited to try that out. So after briefly looking at the manual, it's actually more simpler than it seems. The first thing we want to do is we want to plug in the power to the printer. So I got the brick plugged in. You can see it's glowing blue. And then we're going to take our other end and plug it in the back of the printer. And so all we got to do now is hit this little power switch. And there it goes. And we can see there's a really nice bright light right here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to adjust this bed to be flat to the bottom here where the screen is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put the build plate back on onto the frame here and tighten it up nice and tight. So on each side there are 4 bolts that we're going to need to loosen. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to release the bottom plate here where it can move around. So as you can see, the bottom plate can, you know, fluctuate now quite a bit up and down. And so the whole point of this is to get this really flat to the bottom. And so the way you move the Z-axis up and down is you just rotate this knob. So if you rotate it one way, it goes up. If you rotate it the other way, it goes down. So now we're just going to slowly move down. All right, so we are on the bottom now. If you guys can see that. Now make sure you do go all the way down. And so to get this thing really flat, what you're going to do is you're going to put 2 fingers like this, some pressure down, and as you're holding it down, you're going to tighten these little hex bolts back up. And so what that's going to do is give us a really flat, even surface on the bottom. So be gentle when you tighten everything up. It doesn't have to be crazy tight. All right, and so if you guys notice, we can't go down anymore because it does have a sensor right, kind of hard to see, but right here there's like a little optical style sensor that tells it to stop, and that's right at the bottom where it needs to be. All right, so simple as that. We have our bed leveled now, or should I say our printing surface. So let's go ahead and go up. Now I did throw the SD card in the computer, and I think there's some test files in there that I think we can go ahead and print. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. And that just goes on the very bottom here, upside down, and it clicks in. And our light actually turned off and turned green. So I'm not sure what all these lightings mean, but I'm guessing green means maybe it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and pour some resin in there. Now you definitely want to wear gloves when you're handling resin, and you want to make sure you have enough ventilation in the room, you know, so you don't choke yourself with this kind of chemicals here. But this being a water-based, I think is not as dangerous as other ones. Let's go ahead and pour some in. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour about half of this tub in there. And look at that, we got like this orangey tan color. There should be plenty. So I haven't looked at the manual at all to how to use it, but I'm going with my intuition is if we just click this big button here, it should start. Let's try it. All right, so something started. All right, and it's lowering down, so maybe we got something going here, guys. So I can hear there's quite a decent amount of fan noise coming out of here. See if I can get the microphone closer. It's not super loud, it's just definitely noticeable. All right, so it's going into the resin now. Oh, look at that. I hope we didn't put too much. All right, and it looks like our process has started. Or maybe not, it's coming back up. All right, so it's going back down now. All right, so now it's staying down, and I'm guessing it's doing its thing now. So it's going up and down some more, so I'm guessing it's doing something, and I was looking at the manual and the pulsing red means it is working. So I guess it did find a file and it is making something right now. So I'm going to leave it alone for now, and we'll see if something comes out of it. But we got to put this cap on because we don't want UV light to, you know, mess with our resin in there. And that's what this cap is for, is to protect the resin from light. All right, so I'm just gonna let it be, and we'll see what happens in a little while, and we'll see if something starts to show up in there. All right, guys, so maybe you can see there we have some kind of model popping up. So it's been, I don't know how long, maybe about an hour, and it's working, and it's definitely making something. So yeah, it looks like everything's working out, and we'll see what this thing looks like when it's done. So the print finished, and it looks like it is successful. So let's go ahead and take the cover off. And we can also see that we got the green light here pulsating, I guess indicating that the printer is done. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. And let's go ahead and look at what we have here. So I'm gonna have to be really careful because there's a bunch of resin on the top of this build plate. So I'm just gonna go under and tilt it so we can drain some of it. And so the cool thing about this resin is we should be able to wash it off in water instead of alcohol, which makes it really friendly. So our print looks like some kind of ball, and it is on supports. So I went ahead and got a little container of water ready, and I'm just gonna set this whole thing in there. And so theoretically this should just clean right off, and it is coming off actually quite easily because we can see all the little holes in the ball are starting to open up. Wow, that's pretty awesome, and that works very well. Now I don't think we need to keep it in the water too much, but I don't think it matters either since the cured resin, you know, shouldn't dissolve technically. All right, so we're gonna grab our provided spatula here and see if we can scrape this print off. Hopefully it'll come off easy. Okay, it's stuck on there quite well, but it does seem like it's coming. Okay, so I just broke part of it. Okay, so it's coming off quite easy, but it's coming off in pieces. It's better that it sticks than it doesn't, so. All right, well, this should not be harmful at all to the touch now because we're only touching cured resin. And you guys can see how the supports were laid here, and they're popping off really easy also. I think I am damaging the ball a little bit. Well, actually, maybe not. So that's what the support looks like. Let's wash the ball a little more here. I really like it that we're using water and not alcohol. This makes it super friendly. If this was alcohol, obviously I would definitely be putting on gloves. In any case, let's check out this ball. This is actually quite mind-blowing. I think this is the closest I can get with this camera, but if you guys can see that, that is amazing. That detail is just mind-blowing. I'm actually very surprised that we were able to have this kind of detail on this little printer here. I don't know if I can get you a reflection, but you can kind of see the layer lines maybe. I think we're going to have to use like a macro lens to see that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the macro lens so we can see even closer than this. Alright guys, so I pulled out the macro lens and yeah, we can see a lot closer now. Actually, I can see stuff on here that I can't even see with my eye. But yeah, check out that printing. I mean, that is phenomenal. You can kind of see how big my fingernail is. I mean, I don't really know what to say except for I'm impressed. But yeah, you can see the layer lines right there. And with your naked eye, you can't even really see them. You really have to look for them. So hopefully this gives a little better perspective of how good this print is. So even though this printer is on the budget side, we are still getting amazing print out of it. And again, that's my fingernail for scale. So yeah guys, quite exciting stuff. I'm definitely excited what this printer can do now. I'm going to go ahead and wash all this stuff up. And it looks like it's pretty much already cleaned up. I just need to wipe it down. And so I think the next thing we should do is we should grab this SD card and we should go to our computer, install the software that comes with it so we can slice our own models and print them. And so because I'm not going to use the printer for a little bit here, I don't want this resin just sitting in there, so I want to pour it back into the container. Now you can pour this, you know, straight from the machine, but that would not be ideal because it'd be hard to clean up the whole tub area. And so what you're going to do is you're going to unscrew these two bolts here. And honestly, I wish they would have made some kind of, you know, quick knobs or something that we can unscrew. I don't know why there's no knob, because either way you look at it, this thing's going to have to come out. All right, so then we're just going to grab our filter that was provided, and we're going to grab the whole tub, and we'll be able to pour the resin back into the container. And the reason you want to use a filter, because you know, just in case there's some kind of contaminations, it's not going to go back into the, you know, pure resin there, then mess up your print later on. And so maybe guys, you can see what it looks like. So there's just a clear plastic that the light shines through, and that's how it cures the resin. So when I get this pretty much all out, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the sink and just wash it off, since it washes off by water, and we'll be done. I already washed the build plate with water, and you can see it turns out perfect. Now you still definitely want to wear your gloves, because if you get contact with resin, you know, in your skin, that's not a good thing. So just keep that in mind. You definitely want to wear the gloves. So yeah, I literally went to the sink and just rinsed it off. And as you can see, there's no resin anywhere. It washes off quite easily. And then we're just going to take, you know, a little napkin or a rag, and we're going to just wipe off the excess. So we can kind of see what our film looks like now. It's a little bit more hazy. And over time, you know, this film will get worse and worse as you go. So the reason it's hazy because there's a really small film of resin on it still. So yeah, eventually this stuff does wear out after a certain amount of prints. As you can see, there's a ton of bolts that hold this film here or stretch it out. When you replace it, all you got to do is just take off all those bolts and then put the new film in and then compress it, cut off the excess, and you can buy this film, you know, pretty much anywhere. It's a very serviceable part. So, all right, so if you know you're clean and dry, then we can go ahead and install it back and we'll be ready for our next print. All right, so we are here at the computer and we can see I got the SD card connected. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what's in there. So if here we have a file of contact us, a little PDF of their information. They got a bunch of video guides here, I guess actual videos if you need help. The instruction manual, print parameters. Now this could be pretty useful. So I guess these are different resins and how to adjust them in the settings of your slicer. So we have this one right here, which is the water one, and here it tells us how to adjust the settings here according to the thickness of the print. So I think most of the prints that I'll be printing is in this 0.05, so it's medium between 0.1 and 0.25, and we'll get to it in a second. Is because of the software here. So you can either use Spark Studio or Chitubox. I'm not sure exactly how good the Spark Studio software is, but I know Chitubox is an amazing one, so that's what I would prefer to use it. And they actually include the profile here with it and the installation. And we do have a last folder here that's called resin, and it's just a little PDF about their resins and what else you can do with them and whatever. So there was another file in here called the test file, but I dragged it out of there for some reason, and then I couldn't put it back in because there was no more information, so I'm just keeping it in the computer for now. But this one just has like the sample prints, kind of like that ball that we printed. And so we're going to print some of these here, kind of like this ring. That's pretty cool. We can try that. So back to the software, you can install Chitubox from here, or you can just go online and install it. So it's up to you. And here's the cool thing about Chitubox is that they already have settings just for the Spark Maker. So if you go over here by this big slice button here, you can see settings. And if you click on that, you can see I have the Spark Maker FHD selected, and it automatically puts in all the parameters. Now you will need to go over here in the print area and fill these out correctly according to the PDF that we saw in the print parameters of our resin. So depending on the kind of resin you're using, so I filled out this here on the 0.05 millimeter layer height over here. So that's the only thing you really have to do, is kind of fine tune the resin to the slicer so it knows, you know, how the best way to print. And so the way you're going to find the Spark Makers, you're going to click on this little add new printer here, and then here it has all kinds of different printers that you can choose from, and the Spark Maker right here is one of them. So you do have FHD, or I guess the original. So I think most of the Spark Makers now are FHD, which is the higher resolution. So if we click on that, we can see our little picture comes up here. I'm going to cancel it since I already have one, and it'll just show up here on the side, or you have a default here. So if I go to default, it kind of goes to what it starts with, but then if I go to my profile, it goes to the Spark Maker. So yeah, it's as simple as that. So after that, we're just going to drag in any model you want. Now the models that they have provided are nice and easy and ready to go, but let's go ahead and try to print something of our own, like this calibration cube. So we're just going to drag the file in there, and it pops right up. So obviously you can move around, zoom in, zoom out, do what you got to do. Here's all your settings. So this is moving it on the axes. This is twisting it around if you want to twist it around. This is to scale it, bigger or smaller. And then here you can kind of mirror it and whatnot else. So pretty basic controls. So on the top here we got open file, save a file. Apparently you can screen capture or record, undo, redo. You can clone the model, auto layout the model or models. You can make the model hollow, which we definitely want to do, because if we print this solid, this is going to be quite a lot of resin. And then we can make a little hole for the resin to drain from. So if we go over here to the upper right portion. Here we can see on the axes cubes are what we're looking at. So you have a home button here and it kind of just zooms out. Here we have a little, I guess, zoom button. And here we have top, left, and front. And there's an arrow here indicating, you know, which way's front. So over here we have settings. So this is the file that we're using right now, which is this cube. We can click this delete here and it'll delete the cube. So we saw the settings and this is the slicer when we're ready to slice, which we're not yet. So over here we have a tab. So here we have all the support settings, you know, for the model. Now I'm not too good at this, but you know, usually automatic works for me. Here's all the settings you can set for top, middle, bottom, and raft. So I'm just gonna leave those where they are. And then we're gonna choose medium for the support type, which I think is default. So here you can kind of adjust everything if you play with it. So down here, if we click this button here, platform, we can see the supports automatically just appear and there is a little platform there. So in simple terms, that's pretty much how you do it. But if you play around with this, it's pretty intuitive and it makes sense. So kind of like, let's go ahead and remove all the supports and then let's go and try light. And if we try light and then do it again, we can see we get a lot more pieces, just smaller ones, connecting to the cube. So I'm not sure if this is better or not. I'm just gonna go ahead and stick with the medium. I'll remove them, put in the medium. And obviously you can play with all this in the settings here. Now we have a little scroll here. If we scroll it, we can see exactly what's going on. So right now our cube is completely solid and we need to fix that problem. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to this little gear thing here, and then we're going to go over here and click on hollow, and it's going to ask us the wall thickness, inner, outer, I guess inner, and I'll push start and there it goes, it hollowed it out. So as you can see guys, it's completely hollow inside and there's only supports on the bottom. Now if we go back to our supports, we can remove all the supports, and then if we click on platform again, you can see how we all of a sudden have supports inside of it. So you probably want to hollow it out first and then do the supports, because now we have little trees inside, you know, for the support of the top layer. Now we also have another issue. If we're going to print like this, what's going to happen is we're going to have, or potentially we could have resin inside the cube, and that's not a good thing because, you know, it's not going to cure it, plus it's going to warp the cube. And so since our top here is actually the bottom, what we want to do, we can use this option here called dig a hole, basically, or dig hole. It's going to make a hole and it's actually going to keep the little cap if you select this part. And you can choose the kind of hole you want. So let's just go with what it has here. And so here we can add a hole anywhere on the cube, put a hole right here. So what it does is makes a hole and it throws the extra piece down here on the bed. So it's actually going to print that extra piece. So later you can cover it up. And so there you go. So now we have our hole. And so now when this thing prints, if there's any resin inside, hopefully it'll leak out. And then we can just take this little plug and plug it back in. So I guess we'll experiment with this idea here. Because this is a box and it's completely sealed and we have air inside, there's a good possibility there'll be resin in there that might want to come out. So, all right, so once you know you're happy with everything, what you're going to do is come over here and click on slice. And so now it's going to get sliced. And here we have a little preview, and this is exactly showing us of how it's going to print. So if we go to the very bottom, this is what it's starting with. You can kind of see how it's going to be printing. So you can kind of double check everything, make sure everything looks good. And over here we have some information, you know, of what our volume is, the weight, I guess the price here, and how long it's going to take, most importantly, which is 3 hours and 26 minutes, which is quite long, but don't forget we are printing at quite a fine resolution. All right, so what we're going to need to do after that is save the file. And so because our printer only takes one file at a time, I'm not sure exactly what they need to be called, but I think if you just leave them called print like this, it'll work every time. Once you stick the SD card back into the printer, it'll know what it's looking at. So let's go to desktop here and save it. So now it's going to write the file here. Okay, so it says wrote successfully. Let's go ahead and minimize this. And this is the file that we have here. And it's called print.fhd. So now all we got to do is throw this onto our SD card. And now we can go print it. Now if you have more than one file in here, you might want to make another folder and just kind of throw the files in there or delete them. I'm not sure exactly how the printer works with multiple files. I haven't really tried that, but you know, if you just have the one file that you can see here up the front, then it always picks that and prints it. But yeah, so now we're ready to print. So I'm just going to put this in the printer and we'll start printing our cube. Alright guys, so we're back at the SparkMaker, and let's go ahead and put the SD card in. So you can have the printer on, you know, while removing and installing the SD card. This will change because it'll read it and it turns to green. It's found files and it's ready to print. So if I click on it once, it should find that file and turn red here. And so now that it found it, it started printing. And that's pulsating. Our Z-axis is going down right now. Let's say you started your print and this thing is so low in there you can't even see. But if you pause it by clicking it once, it'll raise it up above the tub usually, I think. And then you can see if your model's stuck or not to the plate. Alright, so as you guys hopefully can see, that our print has started. And we can see our first layer there of our cube, which is the platform part of it. So if I click this knob one time, what it's going to do is going to pause and bring it up. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see it turned blue. Now it's going to finish the layer before it goes up. So if it's in the middle of doing something, you got to wait for it. Alright, so it's finished with this first layer. Now it's going to go up, you know, quite high. And we'll see on the first layer if this will be higher than the bath here, so you can see it or not. Alright, and so it stopped right there. And if we put our plate in, you guys can't see, but it's about 5 millimeters above the tub, so you can see the bottom of the plate. So that would be one of the ways that you can check your print while it's printing, if you wanted to make sure if it's stuck to the bed plate here. So to resume the print, all you got to do now is push the button again, just like that, and it's going to go back down and start printing. So now it's going to work on its second layer. Wherever it left off is where it's going to go. But let's say you wanted to completely stop the print. What you would do then is you would hold the button for 3 seconds or more, maybe, I'm not sure, about 3. There we go. And it turns green. So if you remember last time it turned blue, that was paused. Green means it's going back to the state where it's on standby, ready to print. When you stop your print, it actually doesn't go anywhere, because from now you can move it yourself. And so those are some of the basic functions that this knob has. So since we're ready to print, I'm going to go ahead and put some resin in there. And we'll start the print by pushing the knob here just once, and it initiates it. Alright, and so in about 3 hours this print will be done, and we'll check it out. So the cube is done. Let's see what it turned out like. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in a glove before too many people get upset at me. So we're going to drain this by angling it. And I do have a bath of water here ready. And we can see our cube is on there. But unfortunately, I don't think we got our little plug printed. I guess that got lost or didn't stick to the plate. So let's go ahead and dunk it in there and clean it up. Just going to whirl it in there. This water-based resin is really friendly. Alright, so now I'm going to grab my little scraper tool, see if we can scrape this cube off. Alright, there we go. So I'm going to wash it really good in there, get all the resin out. Alright, so I rinsed it up and kind of wiped it, and I could definitely tell that the resin hasn't cured all the way yet. It feels a little bit soft to the touch, so I think we need to let this thing cure really good. But you guys can see that there's that little hole that we punched in there to release the resin from the top. And the little cap that was supposed to print looks like it didn't print or it got stuck inside the printer. So we're going to have to make sure we clean up the resin before we print another one. And it looks like our supports worked out pretty well. So I'm going to let this cube cure and I'll print a few other things and then we'll take a closer look at everything. Alright guys, so as you can see I printed quite a few things here, and honestly, I am very impressed with this resin printer. I was not expecting this level of quality. The prints that I got out of this SparkMaker are phenomenal. I haven't reviewed too many resin printers, but this one I think so far takes the cake, at least for me. We're gonna grab the macro lens and we're gonna look at each item here close so you guys can really see how well the SparkMaker did here. All right, so here's our first print that we did. A little quick look at it again. And that's looks like the closest I can get. So I did print this huge donut thing, and this one looking at it up close, but you guys can see that the level of quality on this thing is quite amazing. Having a hard time knowing if it's in focus or not. So very complicated patterns like this, you know, can be printed obviously with a resin printer that you wouldn't be able to do with anything else. You guys can kind of see the marks there of where the supports were. So All right, so I adjusted the camera away. I don't have to hold the model up. There'll be less shake like that. But here we can see the cube. It obviously turned out pretty good also. Now the little marks that you see on it, it's probably me touching it while it was too soft still and making creases in it, things like that, like wiping it down. The best thing to do is obviously just to naturally let it cure in the sun. And you can see that punched hole that we did there. Now we did lose the cap unfortunately, but you can see how that could work out pretty well. If we had the little cap, we put it back in there, you almost wouldn't notice that there was a hole there. And I didn't take it off the support so you guys can kind of see. And the bottom is definitely droopy looking. And the reason for that, I think, is because the resin hasn't all came out of it. So overall, I was quite impressed with this print. Thought it turned out really good. So this was our first slice in Chitu box, and it turned out okay. So the next thing I want to show you is this ring. So this came as one of the files with the printer, and it also turned out phenomenal. I mean, look at the details on the mouth there and on the eyes, and it's quite amazing. And this ring does fit my finger, mostly my middle finger. Let's see if I can put it on and show you guys. It's really hard to see this close up, but anyway, the detail is just phenomenal. So I'm very impressed with this printer. I don't really know how much better you can get after this, because with the just looking at it with your eye, there's no way you can see any kind of layer lines or anything like that. So yeah, even if you look at the teeth, like that's pretty small, tiny little details there that are very high quality. So an excellent print with this ring, and obviously flexes so you can, you know, fit your finger. It's about a size 9 to 10. So all right, so yeah, this is the ring. Very nice. All right, so for the next print, I got the soldier figurine here, and he's turned out very well also. I mean, that's excellent detail, guys. Throw my finger in here so you can see how little that is. So you can see my fingernail there. That's the soldier. So yeah, very good quality. So we can see his hand there, the little gun that he's holding. There's a pretty sharp tip there at the end of it. You can see his shoes, his pants there, the gun, his backpack. So he did print laying down like this. There were some supports here that needed to pop off, and that's what those little dots are all over the back. So it's a little bit flexible. You can see here I'm flexing his gun so it doesn't break off completely. Maybe it's just still curing, but in any case. All right, so for the next item, I wanted to print something a little bit more interesting. This is where I printed this airplane bomber thing. So and it turned out very well also. You can see all the details. So the roughness behind the wings is where all the supports connected, or most of the supports. If you guys can see the detail on this thing, it's phenomenal. Let's see if I can get closer to this gun here. Look at that. That's amazing. And the engines here, pretty phenomenal detail. The thing that blew me away about this print is at the end of the wing here, you can see that there's like a little wire there. There's a gap between it. So there's like a little wire that connects to something there. And it printed it with no issues, looks like. Same thing on the other side of the wing. You can see that little wire. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, the detail is just phenomenal. So yeah, this was a great print here. All right, so this next print really shocked me. And the reason it did was because how small it is and what kind of detail we still get out of it. So I did not actually remove the supports from it yet. I left them on because I was afraid I might, you know, break something because it's tiny. I mean, look at my finger and look at the details. So I guess it's like this girl holding a cell phone while also holding a sword in the other hand. It's kind of interesting. And this was one of the files that was included with the printer. So if you guys can tell on the detail of her shoes there, or whatever those are, and then her body and the face, I don't know how much better it can get than that. That's pretty amazing. I cannot see any kind of layer line at all. And keep in mind, guys, this was all printed in the 0.05 layer height. So this is not even the most extreme layer height. And there's a pretty cool sword in the back there. So just to show you how small this is, I also have a quarter here, and you can see how big that quarter is compared to this print. So a quarter is, you know, a pretty decent size, but having prints that tiny is quite amazing. So I don't know, this printer can do these miniatures flawlessly. All right, guys, and so the last thing I printed was this Eiffel Tower, and I can't fit it all in here in this macro lens. I can't zoom out enough. In any case, we can look at it up close, and this thing is tiny, guys. Look at my fingers and look at the Eiffel Tower, and it's absolutely tiny. But the level of detail that is there is just phenomenal. I mean, look at all those braces in the tower. You can see through all of them, like perfectly, and every brace is there. This is a really complicated print technically because of all the braces, but because of the way resin printing is, you know, it's not hard for it to do it. Like for an FDM printer, this would be impossible, obviously at this scale, but even at larger scales, it still has issues because of all the retractions and whatnot else. That's a really beautiful print. So I'm going to flip this thing around so we can see the top portion of it. So this is the bottom here, and we're going up as it gets thinner. The thing what I want you guys to notice is look at the light that passes through it. So as the tower goes up, it gets thinner and thinner, and so thin, but we still have light that passes through. So I mean, we're completely open still with that kind of fine detail. Even all the way up here, you can see those really tiny structures there, little holes. It's even clear through there. And then we get really macro up here and have some really fine detail. So I'm going to try to pan it here slowly. Hopefully it'll work. There we go. Maybe that's working. I don't know if I'm too close to it or not, but yeah, so pretty awesome. I guess I didn't have it set right where the light goes through it. Let's do that again. So yeah, you can see all that light that goes past it through all those braces. So yeah, here are all the prints on the table, and you can kind of see them all together in their scales, and you can see how small that Eiffel Tower really is, which is why it's so impressive. In either case, you can see that resin printer definitely dominates the miniatures, and where there is very fine detail that is needed, you know, there's just no way around it. Looks like SLA resin printing right now kind of dominates while still being of value. And the SparkMaker being able to produce these kind of prints is, I don't know, just amazing. So if you've been wanting to get into resin printing, this is probably a pretty great way to start, especially because they have the water-based resin there. And as you can see, guys, all of this was printed with that resin, and it looks phenomenal. Like, I almost think that maybe this is the best way to go. I'm not sure about durability and how long it'll last and stuff like that. But as far as quality is concerned, the water-based resin that they have with their printer here works phenomenally well. And also, if you've been, you know, printing with regular filament FDM style, and you've been thinking about, you know, resin printing, this could also be a good start. And plus, if you just don't like chemicals, I've noticed the water resin here is a lot more friendly. Like, my process is very simple. I pour it in there, I print it, then I pull it out, and then I go to the sink and just rinse it. And the smells are definitely reduced, and it doesn't seem like it's as harmful, or at least it feels like it's not, compared to the other resins, which are very strong and very, you know, you definitely want to be careful with that. So to me, this seems like a very friendly way to get started in resin printing if you are interested in it. Alright guys, well, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then hit that like button. If you want to pick up the SparkMaker and some resin, I'm going to have some links in the description, so check those out. And if you enjoy videos like this, I do a lot of 3D printing stuff. So if you're not subscribed and you want to see more, then hit that subscribe button. And also check out my 3D printing playlist. I have a lot of stuff on there that's pretty interesting. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.